win by their greatest ever margin in a grand final. It doesn't get better than that.
Great memories for all Magpie fans, and I suspect for our guest, Mick Malthouse joins us with vision of you winning your third flag. Mick, I don't think you'll ever get disappointed looking at that.
Oh, they're terrific. It's what you aim for. It comes along very very rarely, and but you put it behind you when you're coaching the next year. It really goes very quickly. I've never watched the game fully. I've watched the whole lot in maybe 10 minutes here and a quarter there and 15 minutes there, but never watched it right through. The first one I did, because I needed to have a look at what we're doing wrong and what we did right. And
can I take you back to your first one?
Oh, no, first one as in last year, first one.
Can I take you back to your very first one?
Player or coach?
As coach?
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel as if you're in a better position now to win a second one, and for you the first time successive flags, than you were back in '92?
I think that you become more aware of why you didn't win the second one. Yep.
Mick,
and I'll follow that also by saying that when I was a player, we played in one and won it. And that side was going to be that good.
Yep.
And the great lesson of that was we didn't even make the finals the next year.
So you went to Arizona, and from all reports, the blokes got belted. This only a few months ago. Was that because of memories of '92 as a player?
81.
81.
I don't say belted. I did it. And if I can do it, I don't think that's a belting. That just simply means that and I didn't do all the stuff the players did, but the climbing and down the trench, we call it a bit of a dip down there, the Grand Canyon, down back, it was okay. It gets hard, but and I didn't do all the running, of course. But no, I think all we did was just remind them that we're in a new year, really, and we had to. That's what you've got to do.
You talked about last year. I sensed from the outside that there was a sense of relief in you, that it was finally there was a flag there, even though you'd coached well in the years when you took Collingwood to grand finals, but it had been 16 years between them. Did you? Is that a reasonable observation?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think anyone who's coached, the greatest thing is relief. It is just one of finally it's happened for that year or whenever, how many years it took and that sort of stuff, and then you might sit back a week later and think, well, that's pretty good for everyone concerned. In particular, all the people that it means so much, probably more to. Now, I know that's a big statement, but yeah, I was born. Well, I wasn't actually born a Collingwood supporter. I sort of put it on when I become my old club in Ballarat, North Ballarat, become black and white. I become Collingwood supporter. But there are people who are born black and white, and I reckon it meant more to them than a lot of people who were directly associated with it, because it is some people's job to do that, and they get great relief from the job more so than the passion of being a supporter. That's why Collingwood supporters, Sydney supporters at the time, maybe South Melbourne supporters who'd waited so long. In fact, a lot of them wouldn't have even known the first one. They would have been told about their parents or their grandparents. So it's the passion of the supporter that you'd love to see it done for.
I saw you first half Saturday. I thought you were pretty sharp against a team that's got some talent, Port Adelaide. What's the biggest threat to Collingwood this year? They've started well and they look like they've prepared well, but what's the biggest threat that you see?
Look, it's going to be another couple of sides, for sure, and it'll be ourselves. But that goes every year. You can be starting off in a good year and you start to get the game going, and then all of a sudden you start to drift. I liken it to our pressure that we put on sides. I liken it to a good, honest 19-year-old that steps into your football club and you think he's just not quite sharp enough to be a really good half-forward flanker, and he's probably not a great rebounding half-back flanker. He's got great courage and he's got great concentration. Okay, we'll tag with him. In he goes. First year, he gets some accolades, he takes some scalps. The second year, he matures, he gets a bit bigger, feels a bit better. Third year, he's really knocking over some really good players. Fourth year, he starts to drift a metre off. Fifth year, he thinks he's Jared Healy, and he's clearly not. So that's the big test. If we stick to what we know best, we're a good, honest side, and with some good footballers. If we start to think that we are dual premiership players in 2 years because it'll just happen, we will end up like so many other sides that have been good, and you don't see them for a little while.
Well, what was your take on the weekend? We've debated here about the sub rule and the teams maybe going more around the boundary line, long kicks into the forward 50 more so than ever. I mean, the preparation of this year, has it been harder because of the sub rule and maybe knowing things are going to change? I mean, how did you see the weekend?
I did listen to a bit of your stuff there. I made absolutely rubbish. Not yours, I've got to say. I cannot believe this thing that, Jared, that you've come up with in regard to numbers. 1 versus 2, who's got the chance of winning that contest? You're probably I'll say Roosy's fairly fit. Those two. 2 versus 3, probably the 3. 4 versus 5, flip the coin, really. 4,
so how does that impact on how many people you got on the bench?
Because you should have 10 on the bench. Why cut it? Why cut it? If you're going to say this word fair, anyway, I don't believe in fair. You want to talk about fair? Fair's got nothing to do with football.
You have to be practical though, Mick. You can't have 10 on the bench.
Exactly. So why cut it? You have 5. Do what Rizzy said. Add another one on. Have your 4 plus your 5th one. The more you diminish the numbers, the less fair it's going to get, because you can cover your first one. What happens if your second one goes down? All of a sudden you've got 2 to 3. If one goes down and you've got 4, it's 4 versus 3. It's minimal damage. Minimal damage. 5 versus 6, hardly any. 6 versus 7, it's just a matter of bad luck. But when you start to diminish the numbers, you start to get right into being unfair. I don't believe in that. That's a rubbish word, fair. Rubbish word.
So you don't think it worked on the weekend?
I think it's going to make sides more vulnerable to having to cater for a disadvantage of losing players. Because one is, well, we've had scenes West Coast when they got over the line with 2 very good players sitting on the bench, regardless of whether it was 2 good ones. It could have been they could have been their 20th and 21st player. It's still damaging when you've only got 3. Now, I argued like hell for it. And
for what?
For the fact that it was ridiculous. We had evidence that showed that we actually had fewer injuries. But when the AFL made the rule, we just went, bang, that's it. Let's get on with it and try to make sure this rule works for us. So that's all I want to say, is that I don't believe in what you said is right in regard to numbers dropping down, makes it fairer, it makes it harder. As a coach, believe me. I don't know what
but it was the coaches who wanted to have the replacement. Now, when Adrian Anderson came to you and said, we're going to not replace...
Misinterpretation, Jared. Don't ever blame the coaches for this rule. Do not ever blame the coaches.
It was Dean Laidley, though, that wanted to have something done about the imbalance.
Dean Laidley, who was he coaching at the time?
He was coaching the Kangaroos.
How long ago was this?
2 years ago. It was the first time he said, when you lose a player from your rotations, you are almost guaranteed to lose.
Well, statistically, that will show a degree of right. But not necessarily. You're not going to tell me the AFL have jumped on Dean Laidley's thing and to make the change of rule, because we will produce evidence clearly that shows that we do not have the injuries because we increased our rotations. Increasing our rotations had a dramatic drop off in our injuries.
But the sides we're playing against got far greater injuries, ballistic injuries.
Oh, so it's our fault.
No, it's not your fault. But
well, it must be.
But they had to react. They had to react to the injury report.
We were told that. We were told that. You increased yours, so therefore you've caused half your injuries. I'll turn it up. I mean, what rubbish is that? That is the most bunkum of all time.
You won that one. Now, given all...
I'll win most of them tonight. I'll win them all.
I'm on your side, Mick.
There's a division here, Jared. Given all the speculation about the succession plan and Bucks and you...
Been done to death.
I know. I want to ask you a separate question. I know it's been done to death. Does the speculation impact on the relationship between the coach and his senior assistant?
No, not at all. No, absolutely not.
Can I ask you a different question? Because I think coaches, like players, go in and out of form. I guess probably the general consensus...
Do coaches go to form, though?
I was terrible against you, so I was out of form every 2...
You know the best coach? Best coach has got the best side. Give the best coach the best side, and he'll
but I think you are in.
Give a very good coach a poor side, and I'll guarantee he finishes just as far down the bottom as someone else.
But I think you're in good form. I mean, you're in career best form, if I can put it that way. I suppose that's probably why people keep talking about, because it's hard to not see you coaching, I guess, because you are coaching so well. Do you understand that?
The side's winning. So if you draw I'll never forget having a names dropper here. Having a conversation with Sir Alec Ferguson, sitting with him, and we went right through a whole rigmarole of bits and pieces that were going on. And it was the media actually on the phone to him. And I said, oh, you're having some trouble with the media. Oh, there's a bit of bad luck, you know, you quite often... He said, what they're trying to say to me is, we got beaten 3-1, so therefore you out-coached. He said, had I been Port yesterday, we would have beaten 5-1. He said, I coached very, very well to limit the 3-1 defeat. I said, strange about that. But, so I think there's a correlation between a good football side and a good coach. I think sometimes we get damned as a coach when we're not coaching. People not coaching well because the player group aren't necessarily to the strength of the opposition we play. And I think Michael, I can't go back to Norm Smith and Len Smith, but from all accounts, and maybe you've got more information than I have, Norm Smith, great coach, won a lot of premierships, but Len Smith was the actual architect of their modern game, who coached Fitzroy, didn't have the money, didn't have the players, but was still seen as a great coach. But his record shows that he wasn't successful. Was he a good coach? Most of the people, Alan Jeans and Tom Hafey and these sort of blokes, reckon he was a great coach.
And Norm Smith, when he took South Melbourne over and took them into the finals, they only finished 4th, but it was a great achievement. Talking about great coaches, Jock McHale, 714 games, Michael Malthouse, 640. 3 years, you get that record. Two things. Is the record important to you? And it should be. And that means coaching somewhere else.
The record's a different era. It's VFL, AFL. I've coached in both. There's absolutely no relevance.
You wouldn't like to be the longest serving coach in history?
I've done some research on numbers, and I know my wife, actually, she'll be watching this and she'll say, rubbish, Michael. But by the third generation, you're totally forgotten. So why would I worry about any numbers? My next generation, which is my kids, will say, Dad, look at that, she's not far off it. My grandson will say, what in the hell's he talking about? I can hardly remember the old bloke.
I'm surprised you're so big on history. I'm surprised at that.
Yeah, but I'm not out to break records. I use this analogy for the player group. Don't count your games. Make your games count. And that's far more important, because when you get introduced, we'll get introduced as, oh, look, 600 odd games. What they don't say is you coached beautifully for 400 and 300 were absolutely lousy. It's the same with players. So, I'd rather go like that.
Mick, we've run out of time, sadly.
Oh,
it's been pretty short.
He won again.
I haven't had a savaging like that for a while, actually. Great to have you in. Good luck for the rest of the year. I wanted to ask you, you've got 2 tall forwards. I want to know who's best. 3. I want to know which one is the best one, but we'll ask you next time you're in. Appreciate your time. And
it's been a pleasure.
I better go back to the drawing book and check out the numbers. Mick Malthouse, our special guest on the couch.